business. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. This is Startup Legal Q&A. Kevin, would you mind closing your camera down? Oh, sure. Good man. Thank you very much. So thank you all for joining us. This is our second legal Q&A, UK Startup Law, and hopefully we'll be able to help some of you navigate the absolute maze that is our startup ecosystem and the legalities around it. The idea, you see, it's quite simple. Unfortunately, over 90% of startups fail. And the top three reasons for that are: one, market fit; two, running out of money; and three, not having the right people. But when it comes down to it, there couldn't be anything more detrimental to your success than your ability to make sure that whatever you're doing, it's legit. So we've got some brilliant lawyers with us today. They're going to spend the next hour with us, taking any questions we may have in terms of legalities around your startup, really. And the idea, it's quite simple. If you are on Microsoft Teams, and then you need to type your question in the chat room, and we will then give you the mic. If you are tuning in via our live streams, whether it's on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please be aware that unfortunately we're unable to monitor your questions there. And that means you will have to click on the link that I have put on all of those live streams. There's a link to our Microsoft Teams. If for any reason, however, you're unable to use that link, then you will need to go to our website, startup2scaleup.club, where you'll be able to find today's session, which is Startup Legal Q&A 02. So it's our second legal Q&A that we do. Now, in terms of your questions today, by the way, they can be on anything to do with your sort of startup and the legal sides of it. Whether you want to know perhaps what is it that you need in order to start your business, or perhaps you want to know beyond incorporation, founder agreements, shareholder rights, IP protection, term sheets, compliance, regulatory requirements, NDAs, employment laws, perhaps legal documents. That's one of the bigger questions I always keep getting asked about: templates, contracts, co-founder agreements or disputes, and all that jazz. We are going to be here with three brilliant lawyers for the next 56 minutes now. But if your questions are not on UK startup law and the legalities around your business, but on other matters, please save them for the other events we run. On Mondays, it's talent. On Tuesdays, it's product and tech. On Wednesdays, it's growth. And Thursday's fundraising. Then on the second Friday of each month, it's legal. And on the third Friday of each month, it's finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startup2scaleup.club. And actually, when you're there, a good idea is to perhaps join our WhatsApp group, and that way you'll get alerts to all future conversations that we run. And just before we start with today's session, a quick reminder to everybody that we recently launched our Startup of the Month Awards, which means that one lucky startup will get featured in all our Q&As for March, which will be 19 Q&As, and you'll get that exposure. Because it's March, we are going to go with a female-founded startup. And if you want to enter the competition, it's very simple and straightforward. Just go to our website, startup.scaleup.club. On the menu there, find Startup of the Month and just follow the process there. And the way today is going to run is we're going to go through some quick introductions, and then my legal panel will perhaps give us their biggest do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage startups and the law side of it. And then maybe we can go through some questions that we have. Again, if you're listening to the live streams, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, unfortunately, we can't monitor your questions live. So you'll need to join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's live audio and it's audio only. And to do that, you need to click on the link that I put on all of those live streams. If for any reason that link doesn't work or you can't access it, just go to our website, startup.scaleup.club, find today's session, Startup Legal Q&A 02, and then click join. We've had over 270,000 people that have joined us, and none of that would have happened without people like Ishita, Saman, and Kevin that are today's panelists. So please feel free to reach out to them on LinkedIn and show them your love, really. But without further ado, some quick introductions. My name's Anton Call. I'm an Albanian in London working with startups, normally right after they get investment. I embed within their teams and help them hire and keep the right people. I also do some growth advisory work with both startups and accelerators. And lately, I've been helping some angels and family offices with their due diligence and assessment. And now we'll go on to Ishita, then Saman, then Kevin, please. Ishita, I have made you a present. Can you hear me, Ishita? I have made you a presenter, and all you need to do is just click on the mic. But if you can't hear us, then maybe we'll go on to Saman and then Kevin, and then hopefully you would have been able to sort out your mic. Saman, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Yeah, can you hear me, Anton?
Yes, we can, buddy. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, great. Thank you. So my name's Saman Harris. I am a lawyer who has been in and around the tech scene for sort of my whole career, really. So I trained at a law firm in the city called Field Fisher, who specialize in technology, outsourcing and privacy stuff is the team I qualified into. I then from there went in-house into some high growth fintech companies, most notably Go Cardless and Checkout.com, and have spent a fair amount of time building and leading legal teams in businesses like that. And then more recently, I've been helping earlier stage companies on a fractional basis as their fractional general counsel. So plug into companies and give services, for however much time they need before they need to hire a full-time lawyer, and then also head up the commercial team at a boutique law firm called called Seven Legal, and we do ad hoc commercial work, so commercial contracting, intellectual property, privacy, all the types of contracts really that Anton mentioned earlier. We support with those. We also have a corporate team who specializes on the M&A and fundraising side, and yeah, really just generally work with founders and startups to get the business where they need to be and help accelerate that growth towards where you want to be in terms of revenues and numbers and funding rounds, etc.
Thank you very much, Saman. Ishita, are you able to talk now?
Amazing. Hi, Anton. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about this, the mic here. It's great to be here. I'll quickly introduce myself. I am a dual qualified lawyer, licensed to practice in the UK and in India. I have over 10 years of experience in advising clients in private M&A, commercial contracts, GDPR and general corporate. I've worked with firms in Mumbai and in London, and currently I'm working as a senior lawyer with Sprint Law UK, which is a tech-based online law firm, and we provide a range of services to small and medium businesses. My niche is in, like I said, private M&A and general corporate and commercial contracts. So I advise founders and investors on their investments, angel investments, or private equity investments, etc. And I'm excited to be here and answer any questions on GDPR, commercial contracts, and in general shareholders agreements, etc. that Anton just mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ishita. Last but not least, Kevin.
Hi everyone, my name's Kevin Levine. I am a recovering lawyer for reclaim soul, and I've now launched a law firm.
Kevin, it's not working, buddy.
Can you not hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No, Kevin, it sounds like you've been sniffing gas.
Can you hear me at all? No.
No, I think that might be something with your mic or your headphones. Do you want to try and leave and then come back, perhaps? Hopefully that works. Rightio. Whilst we're waiting for Kevin to come back, and whilst Ishita and Saman perhaps can prepare some of their biggest do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage startup law, just a quick reminder to everybody that is tuning in via LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. Please be aware that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions there. So if you do have any questions now, you will have to join us on Microsoft Teams. The best way to do that is to click on the link that you have on all of those. And if for any reason that is not working, please just go to our website, startup2scaleup.club, where you'll be able to find today's session, Startup Legal Q&A 02, click join, and you'll be in. Yes, Kevin.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, thank God. Yes, buddy. Go ahead.
Excellent. All right. So my name's Kevin Levine. I run a law firm called Impact Lawyers. We're actually technically not launched, but we're actually running where I'm working with clients. I support, from my side, I support startups and SMEs and VCs. A lot of the work I do is with startups and VCs. So I've currently got clients that introduced to me by the VCs. So for their funding round, the VC didn't want them to go to seed legals or founder catalyst, and they said go to a real lawyer, and they recommended me. So I've actually got 3 funding rounds closing today. So it's constantly refresh on a DocuSign at the moment. I do a lot of commercial work as well, so I help startups and SMEs with their sort of day-to-day legal needs. And separately, outside of the sort of legal work, I'm an angel investor. I won an award from the UK BAA for investing in diversity, and essentially means I back underestimated founders. I'm also the founder of the Diversity X community, which is a community for underestimated founders. We've got about 1,000 members across the world in that community. So that's me. Hope I can help you.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Kevin. Right, well, you've heard the people. We've got some brilliant lawyers with us today, and they're here to help with any questions you may have on the legal side of running your startup. By the way, there are no wrong questions, and there's no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. As far as your questions today are concerned, as I mentioned earlier, could be anything to do with sort of navigating those legal minefields that are there in order to protect your business. In terms of actual topics, could be anything from the very beginning of incorporation to founder agreement, shareholder rights, IP protection, term sheets, compliance, regulatory, NDAs, employment law, legal documents and templates and contracts and disputes and all that jazz. All you have to do is put your question in the chat room here on Microsoft Teams. I will then give you the mic and you'll be able to ask our panelists. If you're tuning in via YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, please be aware that unfortunately we're unable to monitor your questions there, and you'll need to join us live and interactively. It's audio only, by the way, here on Microsoft Teams. You've got a link to that on all of those live streams, but if for any reason you're unable to make that link work, then just go to our site, startup2scaleup.club, where you'll be able to get to find today's session, which is Startup Legal Q&A 02, and there you'll be able to join us directly. If your questions today are not on law, then please save them for the other events we run. We run 6 regular events, 4 weekly and 2 monthly. So Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of the month, as you can see today, it's legal, and third Friday of the month, it's finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. You can RSVP to any of them via our site. And a good thing to do is join our WhatsApp group, and there's an icon off that on our side, bottom and top of the page, and you'll get alerts to all future rooms. And by the way, happy Valentine's to all of you that love each other, and the ones that don't, I hope you find somebody. Now, without further ado, perhaps we can start with Kevin, then Ishita, then Saman. What are your biggest do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage and the law side of things? Kevin?
Is it me first?
Yes, please. So Kevin, Ishita, and then Saman.
Treat legals like you would treat your financials. So you tend to go and get an accountant, or if you internally you have someone who understands finances running your finances, it should be the same with legal, to avoid pretty costly mistakes or things that can, as you're growing and scaling, really come back to bite you. So that's one. Two, there are cheap fixes out there, but every business is different. Every contract tends to be different. So get proper legal advice on those. Even if you're using a template or trying to use ChatGPT, make sure you get somebody to look over it. And it's my bugbear when doing funding rounds is make sure you have your house in order, and that starts with actually maintaining your statutory books. In the old days, they used to actually give you a book and some stamps and stuff. Nowadays, you just sort of keep it on Word, but make sure you update that as you bring in investors and issue shares, change directors and so forth, because when you're doing a funding round, one of the first questions like the other side's lawyers will ask is, where's the statutory register? To which then everybody's scrambling and making sure your due diligence room is up to date and ready. That's my 3.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Kevin. Ishita?
Well, I'll say if you have a co-founder, or if you want to bring someone on board who's, say, a software developer and you're building an app and you want to bring them in as a co-founder, then you should definitely outline all the terms and conditions from the outset in a written agreement rather than a formal arrangement. And based on the nature of services that they will provide, you should give away equity, depending on the nature of the work. Don't give away too much equity. And in your founders' agreements, you should clearly set out what are the roles and responsibilities of the co-founder, and what happens if they leave midway. Your product's not ready, your app's not ready. So what happens then? Because these contracts become important not when everything's okay. They only become important and you only look at them once there's an issue. So yeah, have everything in writing, and don't use templates, because templates are standard, and if your arrangement needs to be tweaked, to make it bespoke to your circumstances, then you should have the right kind of clauses in there that will actually help you and make the contract enforceable. Otherwise, it's just a piece of paper, so there's no point of having a contract unless it's enforceable. The other point is, if you have intellectual property, then chat with a lawyer, understand what kind of intellectual property your business has, because like intellectual property could be copyright, trademarks, designs, patents. So you should understand what each kind of intellectual property is and how you can protect it. And also, if you're hiring employees or contractors, and just ensure that their agreements have appropriate clauses which protect your intellectual property. So anything that they create is assigned to the company, so those rights are clearly spelled out. And number 3 would be yeah, in terms of your customer contracts or your client contracts, the business should obviously clearly set out what the terms and conditions are. If you are selling services online, then there are these distance selling regulations that apply. And if your end consumer or your consumer or client, sorry, your client or customer is a consumer, then those consumer regulations apply. And you need to have certain sort of clauses in your terms and conditions which are aligned with the law. For example, if your end customer is a consumer, then and you're offering services online, you need to have a 14-day cooling off period to allow them to cancel the contract for change of mind, although there are some exceptions to that. So yeah, I think my third point would be your customer contracts, your T's and C's must be according to the law, in line with the law. Yeah, that's it, Anton. Hello.
Thank you. Yes, someone.
Yeah, I think a lot of things have obviously been covered off there, which is great. So I'll just sort of summarize some of the things that I think are the most important with that. I think absolutely getting the setup right. So understanding your ownership structure, how much equity are you giving to who, and then where you are giving equity away. Even if you're 2 co-founders, I think it's really important that you understand on what terms do you keep that equity if you walk away, and how long do you need to be there before all that equity vests? Because I think we see often people kind of, it's Valentine's Day, so we can talk about people get into bed in a happy relationship at the start and they don't think about the consequences of maybe when there's an issue down the line 18 months in, a founder wants to walk away but they want to keep their whole 50% share or whatever it might be. And working back from that can be really impactful, because if you have someone who's not active in the business who still owns a huge swathe of equity, that's going to impact you getting funding from VCs or angels or anyone else who doesn't want to sort of invest in a company where there's that dead equity sort of sitting somewhere else. So I think that's super important. I think absolutely what Kevin said about having preparations right for funding rounds. So even at this early stage, having the right contracts in place, thinking about who are our key customers, getting something on paper that protects you, and having the right type of contract in place with those people. Because again, the first things that lawyers on the other side of a deal will ask is like, who are your, where are those contracts? What do they look like, and do they protect you? So getting those things right is fundamental. And protecting the brand as well, like your value of your company, especially in lots of tech companies, is in the brand, and in consumer-facing companies as well. So making sure you've got the right trademarks, protecting your brand in all those contracts we've talked about. So within your employment contracts, within any sort of consultancy agreements you've got with people who are helping build your product, making sure you own your IP is absolutely fundamental. And then one thing we haven't touched on much, but it's pretty much ubiquitous across everything we do, is kind of making sure you protect yourself from a privacy perspective. What type of data are you sort of taking off your customers, especially in the consumer context again, and thinking about how you're managing that data and making sure you're complying with all your obligations under the GDPR and things is, again, crucial. Easy to get wrong, and it will have a reputational impact where you don't get it right in the first instance. But otherwise, I think we've covered off a lot of stuff, so I won't talk for too long.
No worries. Well, thank you very much to all three of you. That is some brilliant stuff, and I hope the founders in the conversation have taken note of that. We've got Becca, who's put a question in the chat room if the team want to read it quickly. And once you read it and get ready for that, I've given Becca the mic, but just before you ask the question, Becca, just a quick reminder and a reset of the conversation for everyone. This is Startup Legal Q&A. It's our second session on UK startup law. We've been doing these things for almost 4 years now, where we've been trying to help founders with all various issues and challenges they face in their journey from startup to scale up, hence the name Startup to Scale Up Club. And the idea is that, unfortunately, over 90% of startups fail, and hopefully we'll help some of you not only kind of to avoid failing, but also to thrive. Now, today we're helping you with any questions you have on the legal side of things, whether you want to get some clarity on incorporation. So how do you actually set up a company? How do you get founder agreements in place? Perhaps shareholder rights, IP, term sheets, compliance, regulatory requirements, employment contracts, NDA, other legal documents and templates, disputes and all that jazz. There are no wrong questions. There's no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. All you have to do is make sure you're in on our Microsoft Teams conversation. You then put your question in the chat room. You get the mic, and you can ask our panelists. If for any reason you are tuning in via our live streams, i.e. LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, then please be aware that unfortunately we're unable to monitor your questions there. So you would need to join us live here on Microsoft Teams. And when you do that, you then will be able to ask the question. If, by the way, your questions today are not on the legal side of things, please save them for the other conversations we host: Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of the month, as you can see today, it's legal, and third Friday of the month, it's finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startup to scaleup.club. And whilst you're there, please join our WhatsApp group as well, because there you'll be able to get alerts to all future rooms. And obviously, if you are finding any value in what's been discussed here, please share this, especially on LinkedIn, but also other social media platforms that you may use. Becca, you said your mic was a bit grey because you're on Firefox. Now you should be able to talk. So please feel free to introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about your startup and then go ahead with your question.
Oh yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. So thank you for that. With a partner, we're developing an app, and we don't have any budget at the moment, but we have found somebody with kind of old time experience in the back end from the 70s and onwards, who's developing a prototype for us, and we want to use the prototype to do some market research. And he hasn't asked for any money yet, which is, he just says, I realise, that you guys have just started out. So we've also working with a freelance sound engineer who we have paid, a bit. And he did sign it. We did a consultancy agreement for him, and he signed his IP over to us. However, we would really like to develop a collaboration agreement that we can use for people like this, freelancers going forward. And yeah, we got some introductory legal advice, and it is very complicated. We realise this. We were quoted between £1,000 and £3,000, and we just don't have that sort of budget.
Jesus.
So yeah, so that's where I am.
Well, thank
Looking
you
for-
very much. Thank you very much for that, Becca, and very well done on your startup. By the way, just for the team here, but also those listening, what is your app on?
Sorry? What is it on?
Yeah.
It's
What is it
well-being.
about?
Well-being. It's
Well-being.
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 Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Thank you very much for that. Okay, we will go. Let's start with Kevin, Ishita, and then Saman. Perhaps talk about if there's any templates that Becca can find somewhere, and two, definitely if there are ways to get something cheaper. I'm pretty sure there are ways to get a cheaper template from other lawyers than the thousands that Becca was quoted, and whatever else you want to input here. So let's start with Kevin, Ishita, and then Saman, please.
Quick question to Becca. What was the scope of work that you would, and what was the price again?
It was to draft a collaboration agreement, and yeah, anywhere between £1,000 and £3,000.
I think the £1,000 is pretty reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
£3,000 I think is pretty expensive unless they're expecting lots of turns of the document, and so it's time to negotiate. And if it included negotiation, then it's probably all right. But if it didn't, if it was purely on drafting, then I think it's probably a bit excessive for startups. In terms of where you can go to get free or low cost templates, you can try Simply Docs. I wouldn't recommend it. Like, I do think you should collaboration agreements, particularly around like protecting your IP and what happens in the who owns the design, what happens if you monetizing the final product, revenue shares, all of that needs, the commercial agreements need to be considered. So a template document is unlikely to cover the bespoke nature of the deal, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because so you can try Simply Docs or something to see if they've got a template, but ultimately you've got to think about all of these different issues which a template doesn't, and that's specific to what you're doing with that particular partner on the particular development. If it's for like the app development itself, is that what it's for?
Well, there's various things. I mean, one is back end development. One is sound. With the sound engineer, there could be other things later on, I guess. So
with the back end engineers, you probably just have like a sort of standard. You'd have a development contract as opposed to collaboration agreement. It's probably like you're paying them to develop you a piece of work, a product or something.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have that. And
I mean, later on, sorry to butt in, we'll want a front end person, a designer.
Like, so putting my sort of helping startups hat on as opposed to lawyering, I think you should probably consider where you can get the initial development with both the front and back end done. And there are tons of obviously dev houses. I can give you some that are a lot relatively lower cost as well. Verticode is, like, in fact, they're going to be probably building something for us.
We have Tom that joins us actually on the product and tech.
Yeah, so I think
AMG.
Because splitting it out this way, I think becomes very bitty. Also, you're going to have lots of different contracts. It's easier to just do it with one and have someone maintaining the relationship. But if you want to
The
go,
only difference here, Kevin, sorry to interrupt, from what I understand, Becca's found these people to do it for free for now and then pay something later. Is that right, Becca?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because we are operating without any budget. So
okay, in that case, yeah, you're gonna. Are you offering sweat equity then?
well, yeah, I mean we could be. I mean, we're not incorporated yet, we're a partnership, but yeah, I think that's the kind of thinking. But then, you know, we only really want to offer equity to people that we're confident of keeping with us.
Yeah, so in that situation, you'd probably offer growth shares.
Okay.
So they have to so there's deliverables they have to deliver against, and then there's the growth. So the company reaches a certain milestone in terms of valuation, then the shares vest. So basically, they're taking a gamble on you too,
Uh-huh.
but they have skin in the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can I
Thank you
just
very much for the.
add something in there? So
Yes,
Becca,
yes, you can, Becca.
so
Just sorry, Tishita. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
yeah, so Becca, you mentioned that you have a partnership currently and not a limited company.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a specific reason for that?
Just that we haven't got round to forming a company yet. It's kind of early days. I mean, we're both busy with other jobs, and we're very excited by this, but yeah, we don't have the time to fully commit ourselves to, you know, even forming a limited company right now.
Yeah, I think before you proceed with, signing these collaboration agreements, I think you need to first sort your business structure first, because I think having a limited company would be better as compared to a partnership, because obviously you understand that it is limited company, it's limited liability, it's a separate legal person, so you protect yourselves from personal liability, which is the case in the partnership as well. And then you can have these collaboration agreements or software development agreements. We can, at Sprintlaw, we can help you with those. We offer very reasonable legal services, so do check out our website if you want any assistance there. But I think you should think a bit more about how you want to kind of take the next steps before kind of, just executing contracts left, right, and center. That would be my advice.
That is brilliant. And yes, Becca, I totally agree with Ishita. And I tell you what, it takes 15 minutes to set up. I think it's now £12.47 or 13 quid. I can't remember.
It's 30 quid now.
LTD.
It's
Is
50
it
quid. It's 50, sorry. It's 50 quid now. They've increased.
Yeah.
Bastards. Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
the only thing is there's also a lot of, annual work on, tax returns.
It's not a lot. It's very
not a lot.
simple. You can make it as a non-trading until you start trading, and it takes you 5 minutes to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it was one of you, it's actually, if you use Tide Bank, they're still doing it for like 14 or 15 quid and give you a bank account as well. But if it's, they only do it if it's one shareholder or director, I think. So but it's worth going on their website and checking it out, because it'd be cheap, because they obviously do it because they get you as a banking customer. But
yeah. The thing that I've discovered before when I've done this is it takes literally 6+ months to get a bank account open, even with a community,
No. It's much quicker than that, Becca.
Really?
No. You can literally you make an appointment and you go and see them, and unless there's something to worry, i.e. they're sitting there and you're talking and they realize that you have no idea what business you're starting and what you're doing. Unless that is the case, you can open like with a high street bank very easily, and often they give you help on loads of other things as well.
Oh my God.
Come on, anything to add here?
Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah, I mean, I think most of it's been covered off, and I kind of echo the sentiments of the other two. But Becca, I think the key thing here is, again, if you don't yet have your entity, I think it's kind of thinking about who owns the IP throughout this is also key, because if you sort of contract as a partnership for now, then the partnership owns the IP, or potentially the people who've developed the IP own it. Again, in the absence of a contract, that might be the default position at law. But then if you do own it in the partnership, then it would need to be transferred to the business company when you set it up. So I think it's just important to take things or do things in the right stages. So I think having the company, protecting yourself from a limited liability point of view, and then having contracts within that entity will just keep it simpler. Otherwise, you're going to end up, and as the other guys were saying earlier, and we were saying, you get to a funding round and you realize you don't own any of your IP, and investors would potentially be put off at that stage. So yeah, getting your house in order now with minimal effort really is definitely worth it. And if you do want sort of help, I think that £1,000 sort of mark you said for getting these sorts of docs in place is pretty reasonable. I think, you know, if you wanted to do it free, no one can guarantee that the free docs will give you the kind of protections you want, especially if the agreements are doing different things with different people. And that comes back to that thing of, you know, getting the right contracts in place with the right entity. So yeah, also happy to have a chat with you offline about it. But I think all the advice so far has been good.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Thank you very much, Sue.
The guys the other day sort of suggested various template places and then said, you know, start with a template and then take that to a lawyer. Would that work out cheaper?
That was going to be my next was going to be my next point. I know the lawyers here may not be very happy, but personally, I would look at something like Simply Docs that Kevin mentioned. Find the ones that I need, fill them out to the best of your ability, and then go to somebody like Kevin or Ishita or Saman and say, look, this is what I have. Can you have a look? Now, of course, like every other tradesperson, you know, they'll say, and I'm sure they'll have a lot of other kind of things to add and may not be very happy to work on somebody else's work. But personally, I think that is much more saving to do that. I don't know if the lawyers on the panel would agree here or not.
Yeah, I mean, go on.
I was just going to say, I'm not sure I always do, maybe sometimes, but I've often spent longer unpicking a fairly bad template than it takes me to start from a position I'm comfortable with and you know, building it from scratch. I
totally agree with you, Saman, there. Yeah, totally agree. It takes a while to kind of, you know, then fix the draft as opposed to starting from scratch. Yeah, I think that's easier and quicker as well, even for the clients, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
Fair enough.
There's certain types of documents that you can probably get away with it with, like an NDA or something like that. But also, any good lawyer worth their salt will ask you, like, what's your position? They won't just review the document for you and go, well, okay, that meets the legal standards, without knowing what you're requiring. And so the moment they start doing that, they're understanding your business, to which they will invariably change that template.
Okay,
fair enough. Let me put it in ours perspective then, Ishita, Kevin, and Saman. To a contract like the one that Becca mentioned, how long would that take you? An hour, 2 hours?
I think a lot. I think that's probably, in my view, depending on what's needed, and that's spending time with the founder to sort of a half-hour call to understand what's the commercial arrangements. That's time there. Then drafting it, you're looking at probably 3 hours.
So this is a 3-hour billing,
potentially 4. Yep. It depends on the complexity of it as well.
Fair enough. Makes sense.
Yeah, and I'd say the only thing to add to that probably excludes then subsequent negotiations with the third party, if there was any on top of that.
Indeed. All right. Well, that's sufficient, I think. Becca, I hope you found that helpful, and hopefully the others on the call as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and please feel free to join us again. Now, a quick reset of the conversation. I've put another question that is actually not too unsimilar from the one that Becca asked. This is from a digital media startup in Leeds. If the panelists wouldn't mind just going through it whilst I'm resetting the conversation, that would be great. But just a reminder to everybody, if you are tuning in via YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook, unfortunately, we're unable to monitor your questions there, and I can see a few messages pinging on my phone already. So if you do have any questions for us today, you would need to be here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only. There's a link to all, on all of those streams, there's a link to our Microsoft Teams call here. But if for any reason you can't get through to that, go to our site, startup2scaleup.club. Look for today's session, Startup Legal Q&A 02. And once you click join, it's a quick registration and you'll be able to join us. On the other hand, just remember, today we are helping startups with any legal questions you may have, and they can be on anything from incorporation to agreements to shareholder rights, IP, term sheets,